then it gives you all the tools, motivation, and information that you need to become the healthiest version of yourself. The kind of key ways to become healthy have been obvious for a long time, which is it kind of boils down to eat well, sleep enough, move your body a few times every day. And even though most people know those principles, a lot of us still find it really hard to actually do those things. Even just in the few days, it's been really good at pushing me out of my comfort zone. So my background is as an engineer, so product and building and engineering is very much my comfort zone. And marketing and content creation, all of that stuff I find terrifying. And so many people on Nanogrit just do it so well, that aspect of it. And it has definitely inspired me to be better in that regard, and putting myself out there and putting Hoku out there. Whenever I'm doing anything or trying anything with Hoku, I tell myself, like, this is an experiment. Like, this isn't a reflection of who I am. Like, the things I do and the things I see with Hoku, like, none of them are a reflection of who I am as a person. They're just things I'm trying out, and one of it will stick and one of it won't. And everything I'm doing, when I frame it like that as an experiment, then it means that even if something doesn't go well, then I can look at it as sort of a learning lesson rather than a failure in itself.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Ship It and Sip It. I'm excited to kick off a long series of founder interviews with the founders in the Nano Grit Challenge. And the first guest I have today is Kavita. She's the founder of Hoku. Kavita, how are you doing today?
I'm good, very good.
Fantastic. And I won't describe Hoku to our listeners or watchers. Can you give us the one line or elevator pitch to Hoku?
So Hoku is an AI-powered health coach that connects to all your health data, learns about your preferences and your health profile, and then it gives you all the tools, motivation, and information that you need to become the healthiest version of yourself.
It's awesome. And check out the website, heyhoku.com. We'll get that plug right in there. Looks great. There's a demo there. I played with it a little bit before we recorded, and I have a lot of questions about how it works and what it's going to be. So we'll get into all that today. But first of all, what inspired you to build Hoku?
Yeah, so I guess I've been passionate about the consumer health space for a very long time. Like, I think obviously being and staying healthy is one of the things that has a huge aspect on every aspect of your life, effectively. But the kind of key ways to become healthy have been obvious for a long time, which is it kind of boils down to eat well, sleep enough, move your body a few times every day. And even though most people know those principles, a lot of us still find it really hard to actually do those things. And solving that problem of how you get a person from the intention of becoming healthy to the action of actually doing something at scale has been a problem that I've always wanted to fix. So yeah, that's kind of how I wanted to build Hoku. And we're talking about AI for a bit, and personalization, or everyone knew that's always going to be part of that solution for health. And especially because everyone has different incentives, like different health profiles, different ways in which they want to be motivated. But figuring that out at scale had always been going to be a challenge, and it is a huge hill to climb. But with LLMs and with AI, that's suddenly become really easy, which is why I think it's the perfect time for something like Hoku.
Right. You've mentioned that you've been interested in the consumer health space for a while. So I guess you're familiar. What other solutions are out there, and why is Hoku sort of different from them?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of health spaces crowded. There's loads of different products and different verticals, for nutrition, for fitness. I think Hoku will be different in two ways. The first one is it's a comprehensive view into your health, in the sense that it doesn't just focus on one aspect. It's about how all of it fits together, but not even just looking at nutrition, sleep, and exercise. It also kind of looks at who you are as a person, what motivates you, what makes you tick, like what incentivizes you to become healthy, and helps you in that framework. And then the second thing is the personalization aspect of it. I think there are a lot of apps, so things like that are great, like Nike Training Club, which does more of fitness focused stuff. Things like MyFitnessPal, things like Noom, which are more focused on the nutrition side of things. They all have some element of personalization, which usually kind of boils down to do a quiz for about 10 minutes, and then we'll give you certain sort of pathways to take. But like, true personalization where it knows every like little health data point about you, and as it changes, it's constantly changing the recommendations it makes, the strategies it provides you, the way it talks to you. That level of personalization has not been done yet by any of those apps, which is why I think Hoku will be different in that regard.
For sure. And I would just want to put a pin in that data point because I want to come back to that later.
Yeah.
But before we do, you've just joined Nano Grit. You're one of the most recent founders to come into the program, sort of in the second week.
Mm.
What have you found helpful in the cohort so far, and what are you hoping that it will help you to do to move Hoku forward?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I really just love being part of like founder communities. I think everyone, and especially with Nanogrid, even just in the few days that I've been part of it, like everyone's really passionate about what they're building and the problems they're solving in their respective spaces. There's been so much support on the Slack, on Twitter, and I think just being a startup founder is such a weird, unique journey in so many ways that unless you're a founder yourself, it's hard to describe. So, I think even just being part of Nanogrit and like the building public space on Twitter has just made that feel a little less lonely. And specifically with Nanogrit, I think even just in the few days, it's been really good at pushing me out of my comfort zone. So my background is as an engineer, so product and building and engineering is very much my comfort zone. And marketing and content creation, all of that stuff, I find terrifying. And so many people on Nanogrit just do it so well, that aspect of it. And it has definitely inspired me to be better in that regard, and putting myself out there and putting Hoku out there, which I think will really make a difference to, getting the word out there about what we're doing.
Yeah, fantastic. And I agree, even as someone who's worked in content and marketing for a while, a lot of the founders in NanoGrit are killing it. I mean, they have like,
Yeah.
30,000 or more Instagram followers, lots of Twitter followers. So lots of
Yeah.
success there, and a lot that we can all learn from that. Um, just to touch on the community aspect a little bit,
Mm.
are there any founder communities that you're part of, like sort of in real life where you're at, or have you not found that?
Um, with my last company that I did, yes, as part of an in-person accelerator, and that was really, really great. But I think what happens a lot with things like accelerators is that you have that community for that time. So you're part of a 3-month accelerator, and then there's a lot of constant support and check-ins. But after that, it ends, then it's a lot harder to stay in touch because people are busy, people have other things going on. But it is something I very much want to find in real life as well. Like I'm trying to, having started joining the Build in Space community, one of my things I'm hoping to do is to find people based in London who are in the Build in Space community, and hopefully seeing them in real life too.
Cool. Have you always wanted to be a startup founder?
Ooh. Not as a child. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid.
Sure.
But as an adult, I think so. Yeah, like one of the reasons I became a software engineer was because I really wanted to build a product that had an impact on people's lives. And yeah, I think I worked in startups before I created my own startup, partly to kind of gain a lot of experience in how that would look like what building a company looked like. Also because I found it terrifying to go become a founder, even though I thought that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, I think so.
Uh, can we just dive into a little bit deeper into what were you terrified of when
Yeah.
you were thinking about this in your head?
I mean, I think there's a lot of vulnerability in becoming a founder to some extent, because you are, even when I was in a startup, and even when I was in small startups where I was the first few engineers, there's still, if something goes wrong, in a way, it doesn't affect you personally to some degree. Whereas I think when you're building something, it's very much your vision. It's very much like your baby. Um, it's very, every little thing I think can have an impact on you. And I found that quite scary. I found the prospect of and this is a personal thing, I found the failure quite scary as well, like the idea of failing. And I think in startups, failure is very much part of the process. Like you just fail and fail and fail again until you get something right. Like experimentation and getting things wrong is very much part of the journey to becoming a good founder. And I think I just found that having to go through that as a person, and having to go through that growth as a person, quite uh, intimidating. But it has been a process, and I've definitely become better at it now, having done it for a year or so. But initially, before I did it, I looked at it and I thought, oh my god, this is going to be hard. And it's nowhere to hide as a founder, really. If something goes wrong, then it's on you. Like, you're responsible for your company, you're responsible for the people that you hire and that you work with, you're responsible for the experience that your customers have. So yeah, but pulled the plug, quit my job, did it, and I wouldn't change. Having done it now, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Very cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess since Hoku is a health tech focused product, what you described there sounds quite stressful. So, have you developed any? Do you have any tricks or tips or figured out ways to deal with that stress in a more healthy way?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing I've learned. So last year when I was doing my other startup, I burnt out quite badly, and I think coming out of it, and especially going into Hoku, some of the things I've been very deliberate about doing is, always going for a walk every day, always taking care of myself, doing those things day in and day out, regardless of how busy I am. I think it's very easy as a founder, especially if you're on a very small founding team, to think, oh, I don't actually have time. I remember I used to think to myself, oh, I don't have time, go for a walk for 15 minutes, could be setting out 10 emails. I can't do that. But actually it doesn't work like that. You actually do have to put yourself first and take care of yourself and be kind to yourself as a founder. And it might feel like you're not working when you're doing those things, but actually it pays off, because it means you're more efficient, and it means you don't burn out. So doing those things, like making sure I go for a walk, making sure I go to the gym regularly every week, again, regardless of how busy I am. I try and, whenever I'm doing anything or trying anything with Hoku, I tell myself that this is an experiment. This isn't a reflection of who I am. The things I do and the things I see with Hoku, none of them are a reflection of who I am as a person. They're just things I'm trying out, and one of it will stick and one of it won't. And everything I'm doing, when I frame it like that as an experiment, then it means that even if something doesn't go well, then I can look at it as sort of a learning lesson rather than a failure in itself, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective to have. And well, I'm glad you've come to that realization. I'm sorry you sort of had to go through a burnout to get there, but I guess that's
Right.
the journey that everybody has to
Yeah.
go on. All right, let's dive into Hoku a little bit then. I looked at the website, and the first thing I thought was, man, this is huge and comprehensive, as you said.
Mm.
You're trying to cover, general health, diet, and exercise all within one platform. So, does that make you nervous at all? Do you have an idea to sort of niche down further? What are your thoughts there?
Mm. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make me nervous. I mean, we'll go back to the niching in a second, but yeah, I mean, I think, having spent a lot of time looking at other products in the space, I actually think a lot of health products aren't ambitious enough, if anything. I think health is very complicated, like it's very messy. It doesn't work in a vacuum. Your sleep affects your nutrition affects your mood, and then like all of that depends on your lifestyle and your responsibilities and how much time you have. And often my experience with health apps has been that they aren't personalized enough, or they aren't engaging enough, or they only work if you're already motivated, you have a lot of time and you know exactly what you want. So they don't, as you say, don't tend to be very generic or comprehensive all the time. So yeah, I think actually building something more general that is trying to tackle the root of healthy behavior almost, which is what I was saying about intention to action, is ambitious. But the benefits of solving that, uh, both for individuals and a society, I think is big. So it's good that the solution is ambitious. And yeah, with regards to niching down, I think like yeah, the other side of the coin obviously is, as a small team, there's only so many things we can focus our time on. And part of thinking about Hoku is, yeah, where do we prioritize our time? Like, who do we prioritize in building for? So our early segment will be narrow, probably looking at kind of students and people who are early on, like just graduated, in terms of our marketing. So we're being quite focused on how we market. And then also in terms of like rolling out certain features, we'll probably prioritize like nutrition, for example, to begin with, over exercise. But all of it will be on the roadmap, just what we build first.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess before we get too deep into the weeds with the features and everything, can you can you give us a little outline of like the timeline so far? When did you start sort of building or validating the idea, and how long has it taken to get to your sort of alpha where you are now?
I mean, Hoku is so new. It's been really, when we started like thinking about its concept was a month ago, and we spent a couple of weeks like validating, and then putting something together, which we were able to do quite quickly because, as I said, the other startup that I have with my co-founder is also in the health tech, health coaching space, just like quite different. But we already had a mobile app, we already had like a backend system, so we're able to kind of do the wiring up and validating, like a very scrappy validation, quite early on. And yeah, I mean, the alpha has been a week so far, so it's all early. We're hoping, at the moment we're collecting feedback from the alpha, refining the product, like the basic version of the product. We're hoping to get a V1 out in the next month or so.
Very cool. All right, so let's go back to the data part, because this is like
Yeah.
what my biggest frustration with fitness tech and stuff like that is just getting data that interoperates and interplays well into a comprehensive app has been like my biggest pain point as a runner and a
Mm,
cyclist. So like I have a GPS watch that tracks some things, but the app for that watch itself isn't very comprehensive. So
yeah.
I've synced it to Apple Health, but it doesn't take like my cycling activities from that watch for some reason. And even like the built-in heart rate monitor that's on the watch itself,
Mm,
it's like a random number generator when I'm riding my bike. When I run, it's pretty accurate, but when
yeah.
I'm riding my bike, it's like all over the place with spikes. And so the app itself has a really good algorithm for like figuring out how much each run has like strained me, or how much load it is from a training perspective. But when the heart rate data is off, it's like completely worthless.
Mm,
So I'm not sure how Hoku could sort of cover this, because but my concern is that if at the contact point, like the physical contact point, isn't gathering the right data, then everything downstream of that, and that includes Hoku and any sort of app that gives me advice, is just working on bad data. Have you seen this, and is there anything that we can do to sort of make this better?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, it's one of those things, right? Like the hardware. So there are a lot of apps, not just Hoku, which effectively make the assumption that the phone or the wearable or whatever that the user is wearing is returning accurate data and making assumptions based on that. And unfortunately, that's where they're limited because unless we're shipping our own hardware, and the reasons why companies choose not to do that, it just you are just working off what you have. Um, I guess what's the good thing about what comes forward is that companies, we know for a fact that companies like Apple Watch, like improving their wearable technology is like huge on the agenda. Like, Apple is an example of they've gone, Apple Watch is effectively, they're moving it closer and closer to becoming like a medical device now. And so in a lot of ways, they're incentivized to take care of that for the user. And so hopefully all the other apps downstream can benefit from better, accurate wearable data. In terms of what we are hoping to do to not necessarily solve that, because I think unless we do our own hardware, we really can't, and we probably won't. It just doesn't fit into what we're doing. But how we're hoping is that by allowing users to sync in lots of different wearables that they use. So obviously you have your Apple and you have your uh, Google Fit. But people that are really into this, they usually have multiple, right? They have like an Aura for their sleep, and they have, something else for their nutrition. And by allowing a lot of people to sync different devices, what I hope is then we can start looking at ways of, okay, maybe we can say, okay, actually a user can then select, oh, actually, I want this data from my Apple and I want this data from this because I think it's more reliable. So kind of almost letting the user decide what their data sources are, and making it easy for them to pick those data sources, and making sure that we support as many wearables as possible will go some way in solving that problem a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And that is my situation. I have a watch from one brand. I have a bike computer from a different brand, and
Yeah.
I I have a phone that's Apple, and so I would recommend anybody that's just getting started to like stick with one ecosystem in terms of devices, hardware, and software, and whether that's
Yeah,
Apple, Apple's pricey, but it does seem to be doing the best in terms of
the best
the
thing.
sensors right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Okay,
annoying thing. Oh, sorry, I was going to go on a bit
go
of a
ahead.
tangent about wearables. The
Go.
annoying thing about some of these wearables is that choosing one, especially if you're like really interested in the nitty gritty of it, sometimes gets a bit hard because some of them are just choosing to specialize more. Like I know a lot of people who are really into, even if they have an Apple Watch, they're really into sleep data. Apparently, Aura is really good for it. Those who are more into recovery data. So like a lot more people who do a lot of sports, interested in how quickly they recover. Apparently, Whoop is the go-to for that. So I really hope that other than Apple, there's a better kind of all-rounded wearable that comes out soon. Or even if Whoop or Aura start to become more all-rounded in the things that they focus on. Because it is still a bit annoying in that regard. Other than Apple, I'm struggling to think of another all-rounded good wearable that a lot of people rely on.
For sure. And I guess my only suggestion, and this is after listening to a lot of coaches in the running and cycling space, is if you struggle with gathering accurate data to Hoku, and you ask, since it's a chat interface, if you ask people sort of after they run or cycle to rate how hard they worked, and
Mm,
they give at like a 1 to 10 scale, um, and they do that over time. The research has shown that to be a really accurate gauge if they do like a consistent um, rating system. Like they don't say a 7 is a 3 the next day.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
they rate it for themselves in an accurate way, then over time that's just as accurate as trying to train off heart rate or something like that. So just an idea.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
interesting.
okay, let's see. I went into the demo and I wanted to talk about marathon training with Hoku
Yeah.
because I'm training for a marathon right now. Um, and it was generally good advice, but I asked it for pacing suggestions or
Mm.
what pace I needed to run to finish a marathon in 3 hours, and it was wildly off. Like it gave me 6 minutes and 30 something when the true answer is 4 minutes and 15 seconds
Yeah.
per kilometer. So what's causing this discrepancy with GPT, or what's going on there?
Yeah. So yeah, what I want to say is the demo is very limited. It's so we're as you know, we're running our private alpha right now to really fine tune the product. But what happened was we started getting a lot of traffic on our wait list, and we thought, okay, let's give people a little bit of a taste, especially if they haven't experienced GPT. So we just hooked up GPT 3.5 with a chat interface and some prompting, but GPT is actually bad at math. Like it's surprising, but it's one of the reasons apparently why one of their plugins is Wolfram, because it's bad at math. So they were trying to patch it up by having Wolfram as a plugin. But having said all of that, with our fine-tuned model and how we actually process every query that comes in, so on the actual Hoku app, it will be fine for math. It's my reassurance. But on the demo, for now, it's going to be quite limited. We are looking into bringing like some of the features that we have from the Hoku app, introducing it into the demo, just so that people on the waitlist get more and more of an idea of what all the things that the mobile app can do. But yeah, if you join the waitlist, you'll get updated emails about how far we go on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, it did give me some good sort of training tips. I asked it to write a whole
Nice.
10-week training plan, but and then I ran out of space. But it was a little bit aggressive with the weekly step up in volume,
Yeah.
but that happens. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Let's see. You mentioned earlier who you're going to target, and I'm curious
Mm.
just for a little bit more detail. So, what types of people do you want as ideal early users? Do you want experienced athletes? Do you want people that are just focused on health in general?
Yeah, ideal early users are people that I like to call intention rich, time and money poor. So not really athletes, because I think they aren't really our target user. Um, but for our target user is going to be are people who have kind of all the intentions and believe that they want to be a healthier version of themselves. So they're like, yeah, I do. The people who set resolutions at the start of the new year, being like, I'm going to run 3 times a week. I'm not going to eat a whole box of donuts every day. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, oh no, I've completely forgotten that resolution, because whether they're busy or whether they have a lot of things going on in their life, or they might do it for a while, but actually they fall out of the habit and then struggle to motivate themselves out of it, which is, a large portion of people, I would say, actually. So for these users, we think they particularly need something like Hoku, which takes their intentions, removes all the friction as much as it possibly can, and then makes it ridiculously easy for them to make those healthy changes.
Very cool. I guess we touched on this a little bit, but there have been a couple other AI sort of training tools that I've been interested in over the last couple of
Mm,
years as a runner and cyclist. So some athletes and coaches might push back and say, this chat thing doesn't know everything I know from the real world of doing this for X number of years. What what's your response to that sort of pushback, or
mm.
um, is there a space where experienced people can put Hoku in their toolkit as a supplemental tool, not to replace everything they know, but as a sort of aid to help them train better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, like the last company I did, which was talking about, was a health coaching company involving actual, nutritionists and personal trainers. So, we've worked with real live health coaches in that company, and we know from experience that a lot of the efficiency and automation that we started introducing into their workflow actually made their jobs a lot easier for them. So, it meant that we were able to take all the knowledge, all the practical experience they had accumulated, but were able to apply that at scale while retaining the personal touch, which made their coaching really effective. And, I think likewise, we kind of see Hoku not coming at the expense of coaches and experts, but really almost standing on their shoulders in a way. Like we fine tune Hoku, we are fine tuning Hoku right now, not just in academic information, but in the behavioral change models, the learning frameworks that coaches have developed over the last few decades. We're also fine tuning it on, because in our last company, with all those like real life coach and user conversations, we're fine tuning it on all of that as well. So, the coaches that we have are the ones who are validating and continually adding to kind of the core database that Hoku pulls all this information from and learns from. And that will always be the case for us, so that we can make sure that the advice Hoku gives is validated. So yeah, I see it as a symbiotic relationship on both ways.
Very cool. Yeah, it'll be exciting to watch how it grows. And when you launch, I'm excited to start using it. I guess we've been focused more on activity so far, but the other thing that I'm really curious about is the nutrition side of it, the equation, because that is also an important side of healthy living in general. And I think that's another place where data is very hard to get right, because
Yeah.
you can log all you eat, but food is complicated, recipes are complicated, there could be more calories in there. You could,
Yeah.
or you don't want to spend the time sort of measuring everything you eat, which is ridiculous. So what is Hoku going to do in that area to sort of track and help people eat healthier?
So logging is really annoying. Like, I know as someone who spent time, doing things like MyFitnessPal, like, yeah, you're right. Like, they've tried to make it easier now with barcode scanning, but the barcode's always wrong. You have to like edit it. And one of the reasons I always hated calorie counting was because logging was really annoying. And actually, it's interesting because it's one of the, like, nutrition is one of the places we're focusing on first. And one of the things is making things like logging and tracking what you eat easier. We're doing that in a couple of ways. So like we have got a prototype for where you don't have to go and log everything. You can take, and this is using AI, image to text, where you can take a photo of your food and then it breaks it down for you. And obviously there will be an element where you then have to go in and edit it potentially, because again, like AI is only trained on the information that they have, right? And the hope is they will get better. But initially we expect there will be some editing that you as a user will have to do. But hopefully it makes it easier because it's already identified all the components on your plate. It's already given you like a rough measure of each of those things. So it takes away a lot of the tediousness of having to do it. But then also, like, deciding how the user wants to track what they eat. Calorie counting is always the obvious way, but we know from our previous experience with health products, sometimes people just want to take a photo and just have that rather than really going into their macros of what they're eating. So also allowing them to choose how they want to track and then what kind of feedback they want to get from Hoku. Like, do they actually want Hoku to, review every meal, which it can do? Or do they actually just want Hoku to almost keep track of, okay, I've only eaten, 3 desserts this week versus 2 desserts, like I said I would. So personalizing all of that, making it a lot easier to do it. And then, making it again with recipes, also making it really easy for them to know what macros they're eating in it. So like, for example, one of the features that we're really excited about with Hoku is being able to instantly generate meal plans. So that's the thing. A lot of people who want to either go on a diet or who are like, doing some kind of physical activity and need to eat a certain type of diet struggle with, they have a fixed amount of calories they want to intake. They have, sometimes they have a breakdown of how much protein or how much fat they want to take in. But then a lot of the times when you're just Googling on the internet for recipes, you really have to spend time putting all of that together. And I know from experience. Whereas with Hoku, what we're hoping you'll be able to do, you just come in, you say, this is what I'm trying to do, protein rich. Actually, I do want to break it down into macros. This is my calorie count. Hoku already knows your health profile. So already knows, okay, you don't like tomatoes, you really like chicken, you are vegan, for example. So you don't have to repeat that information. And then it gives you a meal plan. It breaks it down for you. And then it also gives you the option to, rejig some of the meals if you want to find things that are better. But then what it then does is it makes that whole process seamless and a lot easier, and hopefully that makes people feel less like eating healthy or tracking their food as a chore, which I think is the biggest like blocker for a lot of people who want to eat healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully, it would just remind me when I'm actually not training for a marathon after the race is over. Like, you don't have to just eat everything all day, every day.
I mean, if you pick one of the like sassy coaches with your personality, I'm sure he'll do that. If you pick like, because you can pick your type of coaches, right? If you pick like a cheerleader type, they might give you the same information, but in a much kinder way.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking me through the idea and the concept for Hoku. One more thing, I guess, since this is a core part of Nano, which you're now a part of, what is your goal for this month in the Nano Grit challenge?
Mm. Our goal is it's punchy. Oh, I've written it down somewhere. My goal is to get 5,000 waitlist users by the end of the
How
month.
many?
5,000.
Oh, and how many do you have now?
We have almost. I've got like a little like thing with crosses. We've got about 900.
Oh, you're off to a cracking start then. Good job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will follow your progress and look forward to seeing Hoku grow and seeing your waitlist grow as well. And just as a closing reminder for all of our new watchers or listeners, you can see the progress of all the startups that are in the Nano Grit Challenge at nanohq.co. There's a little menu bar there with all the 23 startups and what they're building and how many people they have signed up so far throughout the month. And if you want to learn more about Hoku, check out heyhoku.com. And you can try out the demo, sign up for the wait list, and make your healthy lifestyle easier in the next month by getting on Hoku. So thank you so much, Kavita, for your time. And I look forward to following your progress.
Sweet. It's great chatting.